Okay, everybody, we are live. Well, actually, I'm live. Dan has been delayed shortly for a short time because of having to restart a browser, that's the life on Hangouts. Okay, is restarting browsers. Just by the way, just saying. Okay, not me. So let's see. I'm looking at Slack, and I'm also looking at email, and then of course we're also looking at the Google Hangouts page where this should be live. Gosh, so 3 sources. Let's see. Let me actually be even better if I brought that up on this machine here. So bear with me just a second while we get completely set up. But while I'm at it, if you have questions that you've not sent to support, or you can post in Slack, or you can put on the Hangout page. So one of those 3 places, we'll be looking at them all. Please not more than one. I thought about that. And we'll, yeah, let's see. Do I have handy the link? So I can put it in here. Oh, for God's sake. Go away. Go now. Fusion Soft. And just hang there just for a couple minutes, and we'll get started. Wait for Dan to get online. Well, come on, load up. Computer is being especially slow today. Let me try to fix that. I know a lot of you have questions about templates and about mTurk workflows, and so we'll be covering both of those topics for sure. And then whatever else you want to talk about, we'll cover that. And I'll go live on screen to explain wherever that seems appropriate. All right, so bring that open. Well, it's not the, all right, so let's get some of this closed out so we get a little bit better computing experience in the Hangouts. Well, getting an error in both Chrome and Firefox, Dan says. All right, well, let's see. Come on. Oh, God. Computers are painful. Okay, so let's see if I can catch up with a number of questions here. Okay, all right, let's one thing at a time. All right, so I'll do this in some sort of order, I guess. So I'll first deal with the, oh, there's Dan.
Howdy, Leslie.
Howdy, how are you? So you got your various computer issues solved, I see, or at least I take it. So let's see. All right, what I'm going to do first, I'm gonna do the smallest list right now, and the ones that are the easiest to take care of are the things on the Google Hangout, and so I will cover those very quickly, and then we'll dive into some of the stuff in Slack, and then we've got some things in the support email as well. So we'll dig into all of those things. So let's start with Jamie Phillips is in fear that she's flunking. Well, I don't know, but it seems unlikely. Okay. Simply recognize the gap between what we already know and what we're learning. So, and very sound philosophy there, Paul. Thanks for jumping to Jamie's rescue there. Yes, one of the people that spoke to me before I went to the Antarctic said, I apologize for dwelling so much on my own experiences, but those are my personal experiences, but those are the only experiences I've had. If I flow best occurs in nature, okay. So Michael says, Jamie, I'm as lost as you seem to be. Okay, so, and then Carlin said a little bit of a confusion fund. S3 account that bills after the family fund. Truck and pre-fund hits, Leslie said at training. Okay, all right. So what's been expressed so far is confusion and feeling of inadequacy. We'll deal with that today. We'll walk through real example, and you can just like replicate it. And I'll make sure that I provide screenshots of everything so that you can build exactly what I have, and I'll show you in just a little while. Let's jump into Slack and see what's what there. Let's see. Meanwhile, okay, great. And meanwhile, for those of you who have mailed support, and let's talk about the different ways you can get support. For those of you who mailed support at Marketers Brain Trust, Stephanie is currently going through that list right now and assigning all the ResultFlow instance to me. I mean, she is kind of the traffic cop after all. And so anything having to do with ResultFlow, she assigns to me. So she's doing that right now to make sure we're completely up to date for this webinar. All right, let's talk about it. So on the Hangout page in Slack and support. So there's lots of ways to get a hold of us. Now let's talk about how you might like to do that. So obviously during the live event, if you want to kibitz with us on the Hangout page, that's fantastic. I mean, there's like a 40-second, 50-second delay, whatever, just because of Google infrastructure about Hangouts. So just bear that in mind. Okay, it's not really quite real time. So that's the first thing. That's kind of pretty highly interactive. On the other hand, Slack is just as good, and there's kind of a better, easier record about that. And so, which one you want to use, entirely a personal choice. We'll look at both of them. Obviously, when we're not doing a Hangout, we're looking at Slack, and you've seen that. Corey, Dan, and I will all file in there from time to time. Now that's really for Slack. The best thing is, gosh, I'm stuck. How do you do this, right? And so that's where you can get community members. The other 60-odd people who are playing with ResultFlow, same as you are. You can get them to answer those questions too, if I don't happen to be online or available, or Dan's not looking at it. So. That's a really good thing for something that's quick. You just don't understand, hey, has anybody got this issue? How does this work? How are you guys doing it? That kind of thing. It's also a great place to exchange tips. Like this worked for me. We had, who was it that, submitted 30 Turk hits and got only 3 of them rejected through the filters. Like that's pretty good for the first time out, right? 90% success rate. Or jump up and down and scream about some great success that you're having too. That's okay. I mean, we're good with that, right? Now, for something that so if I interact with you on chat and I go on Slack rather, and go, yeah, I don't know, it doesn't sound right. Send me a support ticket. So for anything that we've had a discussion about, you say, oh yeah, this just can't be right. Then then your best bet is to mail support at Marcus Brain Trust. The reason for that is then I've got the chain of the conversation, and I can also reference that for my development system so I don't lose track of what the heck you were talking about, all right? So that's for something that's where I need to actually take a look at it, do some more extended work on it, or it's a real bug report. Support is the best place to do it. Don't dump it in Slack and figure somehow I'm going to copy it out and memorialize it. That's sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't, okay? Even if I've corresponded with you about it. So more often than not, what I will do is, like, for example, we were talking earlier about Amazon keys. And despite the fact that Phil says that it worked, I don't really buy that. I really think that what he had is he changed his root key, but whatever, without getting into that. The IAM system, the identity something or other, whatever, it appears is not supported. Not surprising to me. My MTurk interface in ResultFlow predates IAM, okay? And so I never tested IAM. The fact that it doesn't work, okay, I could have gotten lucky, apparently didn't, all right? So when we corresponded about that, I said, IAM is now a work item, okay? When I say something like that, that means that I went into Active Collab and I created a new task and it said support MTurk IAM or something like that, and it's not assigned to a release yet, but I've logged it. So when I say something like that, you don't need to mail support. I've already been notified. If I don't say that, don't assume that I've made it a work item. All right. So great. Let's go take a look at what's in chat since it's been like blowing up as I've been talking. Okay. The other problem I have is to figure out when's the last time I looked at it. I have to go back and look for my own comments to figure out when I last touched Slack. I wonder when it's like a big rule that I could just like mark the timeline or something. Maybe I'll start doing that manually. So if I start making a big row of equal signs as a comment, that's what I'm doing. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, I spent one out to term. Okay, so what's the feed URL? So I talked to James J about a feed not working. Right, so let's talk about feed problems. That's a good one to start with. Okay, so feed problems. Feed problems can happen for a variety of reasons. So let's start with the first easy one. Is it is not actually a feed. All right, so for example, in James J case with oathkeepers.org/feed. Okay, that turns out to actually be a feed. How do I know? I take that URL and I put it in a browser and I look at the source to make sure it says XML, blah, 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 blah. The other thing you can do, and I always do this, is I take it to feedvalidator.org, okay? Feedvalidator.org is, well, it validates feeds, oddly enough. And so it'll tell you if it's clean, RSS or Atom, and if not, what's wrong with it, and also give a series of warnings. That said, I would have to say that the software I have in RF is not really quite as good as feedvalidator.org. So there are some cases where feed validator will pass it and I can't read it. All right, so there are two conditions there, right? So the first is it really a feed? And then secondly, it may be a valid and I still can't read it. And I need to know about all of those cases so I can use those as test cases to make the feed reader better. RSS is kind of like HTML. It's widely espoused but rarely followed. I mean, the last time I actually did this test, I think it's still true. Even yahoo.com was not HTML valid. Okay, so just saying. And that's okay for browsers. Browsers are extremely lenient. Software that actually doing automatic processing, not so much. So just bear in mind that that can happen, right? Now, the next thing is if you're trying to find out what's wrong with the feed, one of the things to look for is whether or not you're getting error messages in the activity window on the dashboard. And so that's in the lower right-hand corner on both your login dashboard and your persona dashboard. And so when there are errors loading the feed, actually all feed activity will show in that window. And it'll say something like, let me pick an example here from my own. So for example, right now it has a date timestamp. So in this case, it's 1844, which is Greenwich Mean Time. We talked about that. 9 successfully loaded, 0 errors for feed URL, blah, 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 in feed folder, yada, yada, okay? That's a, that's good news, right? Bad news is where it says error 403 or 500 or some error message like, what's a common one would be character data in the preamble or something like that, right? Okay, so those things can happen. If you have those error messages showing, that helps me a lot in figuring out what could be wrong with the feed or my software, okay? So just bear in mind. It's a chaotic place, the web, and so there will be problems, or you will find problems with feeds, and I'll do my best to address all of those, but it's like shoveling sand. You're never done. And that was the case, James, with yours, for example, and I believe I've logged that one as, let me make sure I did, since I just said that that's something I was going to do, right? Because I believe that, James, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you're still having problems with that feed. So that's on my list of examples to try to fix. Let's see, Simon, if I change the filter with a second, I would still fall under those rules. Objective, so I can get, okay, so there's actually a couple of questions in here. Let's see, do we cover everything we need to on feeds? The other thing about feeds is if they're on I think it's 2 hours. I think I reduced it from 4, but I'm not sure. So don't hold me to that. But when you first create a feed, it's going to be some period of time before it updates. However, you can force it to update right away. And so what you do is once you define the feed and hit save, then edit the feed again and hit the refresh button, and it'll update in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. So that gives you immediate, response to, oh, okay, yes, it does work. I can move on. All right. And so what I normally do, all right, is that I'll define the feed, right, and then I'll go build the venue. I'll define the feed. I'll hit the refresh button, and then I'll go build my venue. Then I'll come back and build my content hierarchy to attach workflows to, and then I'll go check the feed, see if it's actually fit. Okay. Let's see. But Simon was asking. Okay, I sent out 2 to mTurk, so 2 tasks to mTurk, and 1 came back, then got rejected. If I change the filter, will the second item still fall under those rules? Okay, so it depends on whether it's been submitted yet. So the filter, so here's the flow of events. Pardon me. So, and people have asked several questions about, does mTurk, I send things to mTurk direct, immediately and all that. Okay, so here's what happens. If I have a rule running on a folder, an mTurk rule running on a folder, the moment that I drop a document into that folder, it goes to mTurk. There's the only delay is how fast the machines are. Okay, so it's inconsequential. It's not noticeable by you. Now there will be a short delay, something typically like 15 to 60 seconds on mTurk before you see the work. And so if you drop an item into a workflow rule folder, right, and then you go rush over to mTurk and you type in your requester name to search for hits, you won't see it immediately, but you'll see it seconds after that. So don't wait 5 minutes. If you wait 5 minutes, it means you probably didn't hit the production, you didn't check the production box. It's probably over on the sandbox instead, okay? So that's immediate. So now, with a Turker, looks at your hit, accepts your hit, does the work, hits submit. How long does it take before that ends up in ResultFlow? That is a polling process, all right? And that runs every 5 minutes. And so it's not going to be any longer than 5 minutes from the point in time that the Turker hits submit to the point in time that the review task, before it ends up inside ResultFlow, before the submitted work ends up in ResultFlow. Now, what happens then? The filter runs immediately and it runs 1 time. That's it. And so if it gets rejected at that point, it's rejected. And Simon asked about that, and I'll answer that in a minute. Now, let's say, as Simon said, you submitted two hits. One of them got picked up, it got submitted, it got rejected by the filter, and you notice, oh yeah, that filter is wrong. If you change the filter now before the next one is submitted, I believe, because it's executed instantaneously, it's immediate, it's only executed at the point in time that the hit arrives, it's going to be the new filter definition that's going to get executed. It's just like templates. When you have a task template, it has an error, and we'll talk about that. you can go edit the task template and you go look at the task again, and it's going to be used the update version of the template that you just edited, right? So yes, part one of Simon's question is, if the work has not been returned by a Turker, has not been submitted by a Turker, you can make changes to the answer template, to the filter, and now the hit template is another matter. That's already done, right? So you can't like change the amount you're going to pay for it. Sorry, that doesn't work. But you make changes to those things that happen over on the ResultFlow side, and that will apply to all the subsequent ones. All right. Now, I'd really like to see what got rejected. Well, you can't. I mean, not easily. I don't have a way within ResultFlow to do that. And somebody asked this about, I thought you could do it easily. It turns out you may not be able to do it all on the MTurk interface. I will look into that. I'm not making any promises about looking at rejected work. That's for a variety of reasons. It's actually damn tricky. Okay. But no, right now you cannot see the rejected work. Can't find another access somewhere. Let's see. Now, to that end, what I would encourage you to do is start with wide open filters and narrow them rather than the other way around. Don't start with a really narrow filter and then widen it. There are a bunch of problems with doing it in that direction, not the least of which you can't find what's rejected. So has it been returned? Oh, that was me. I said, wow, that's a really pithy comment. Remind me issue not being able to get items in my feed in RF. Peer not authenticated. I experiment with other items. So Aaron has having a problem in a feed where it says peer not authenticated. This, I believe, it's a species of 403 error, and I believe it's temporary. However, it's on my list of things to fix. And yes, that is on my list, so you don't need to tell me about it in support. And in fact, Aaron, if you find that feed does load eventually, then let me know, because I have a feeling it's temporary. I don't think it's permanent. Let's see, iTools was saying, I mentioned that I should see MTurk service listed for my Amazon account twice. My account. Okay, so this was all about getting Amazon MTurk actually authorized in ResultFlow. And yes, I'm sorry, there's no simpler way to do this. Literally, you have to go create an MTurk account, then you got to create an AWS developer account, and then you've got to, fund it. And oh, by the way, somewhere in there, it's going to force you to, agree to terms of service. Sorry. And then once you get into the sandbox, you're going to have to do the terms of service all over again. There's not a way I can do any better than that. There's no scripting functionality. I can't provide a user interface that allows you to do this. That's simply not possible to do. So it's a one-time cost in order to use the Amazon MTurk platform. Let's see. I was expecting. And it was. iTools eventually figured out that yes, indeed, it's IAM that's work here. It answered that question. Yes, I understand it's poor security practice, but it's only poor security practice now that they have better security. They thought it was fine before that. Nick is asking, anyone having issues with hits not showing up in MTurk? Well, I don't have the problem. I know Phil doesn't. I'm not sure who else, but let's see. We're talking about users and identities.
And Leslie, that could be as simple as simply not checking the box production, right?
Yeah, and that's a real common issue. So if you think that might be the case, or whether you think it might be the case or not, go to the folder where the rule is running, or the folder above. Click the little rule icon right next to the folder, and look at the workflow definition carefully, because it'll show production right there is either checked or unchecked. If it is unchecked, it's waiting on the sandbox, and it's going to wait there, well, until it expires, unless you go do it. And so delete the workflow, recreate it, make sure you check production. If that's what's going on. If that's not what's going on, I need to know about it. Okay. Do we put general support questions in here? That's CYGE. I wish it would actually tell me real names. Does it actually do that somewhere in Slack? Not so
Yes,
much.
it does,
Oh, yeah,
Leslie.
there it is, Daryl. Okay, so Daryl, oh, that's the last, yeah, it's almost the last name. So Daryl says, do we put general support questions in Slack? Well, again, as I said at the top of the show, so if it's something quick, where you're just trying to understand something and you want to, probably your fellow users can help you with that, absolutely Slack is a great place. Yeah, so general support questions in that context means that. If you're seeing something which is an outright bug, or at least you have a high suspicion that it is, then send that to support. If I talk to you in Slack and I say, there's something wrong there, I need to take a look at, that means mail support. Okay. Test block credentials, mind when having block failed authentication, any advice? Okay, and so Daryl has a specific issue, which is about the test block credentials work, but his blog doesn't work. There's one other where I found that for reasons unknown, it doesn't work. We're getting an error back from WordPress. And it's, it's a legitimate error from WordPress, and I don't really understand it, and I have a support issue, about that one. So in some of those cases, yes, if you can check your venue definition, and if you really think it's right, then what I need for all support cases, right, for anything where you ask me like, hey, what's wrong here, right? I need to know specifically your app name. So that's the whatever.resultflow.com, the whatever part is what I need, your instance name or your app name. So I need to know your app name. I need to know the persona name where the problem is, and I needed the venue name in this particular case, either venue or the feed or the content folder where the workflow is running. I need to have a map to where to go look. I am not prescient, okay, or telepathic, fortunately. So in your particular case, Daryl, I would say check it carefully. Make sure that you got the root URL correct, the XML RPC URL correct, and then verify the creds, which you apparently have done. And at that point, send a support ticket. This is the best place to report issues or possible problems. And so this is Eric Word was saying, reporting issues or possible bugs. Well, I need fields on this page. I need fields on this page. Canadian error, single cut paste to the feed URLs. Use of the star. Few other readers. Let me see here. And I know there's at least one outstanding bug concerning URL encoding, and so it's not impossible that that's the case here. Let's see. Okay, so where's the actual list of feeds? Oh, here we go. Paste directory. Yeah, so on this one, I mean, some of these look well formed and some of them are actually empty, so I'm not sure that I know really what's going on here. So Eric, about the richmond.com website, I understand your question there. Probably the best thing you do is copy that into support, so into your mail to support, and also tell me specifically which feeds on that page you're looking at, and I will try to debug it from there. I don't need, in that particular case, I don't need to know where you have them in RF. I mean, if you're having a problem with the feed, typically I don't care where in RF it is. What I care about is I can go look at the feed itself. Let's see. Refer to a third hit. Was not the time to go. Can this be covered in today's trainings? Okay, so James is asking. He says in last week's training you referred to a third hit. He's talking about a third hit metric workflow that there was not time to cover. Can this be covered in today's trainings? And if how would you create a hit for something like watch a video and write a summary about video? Okay, well there's a couple different questions there, three actually. So the first is Yes, there is that third workflow with mTurk-T. It's a fairly special case. Actually, Phil's using it already. No, I don't see the possibility of covering it today. Maybe, but I doubt it. I really want to make sure that everybody understands, because several people are still having problems with mTurk, TW, and T2. So I'd really like to make sure, in particular TW, I want to make sure that everybody is absolutely solid about that. And I'll write up an application note about T and what you do with it. Now the other thing is to watch a video and write a summary about the video. That actually your TW workflow can be modified for that, either TW or T2. And so really all you're talking about, instead of reading an article versus watching a video, the only thing you're changing is the instructions to the Turker. The structure of the workflow is not different. I mean, you could just as easily say, "Dear Turker, please stand on your head and count how long you can do it and tell me the answer in the reply." And that's still just a TW workflow. You can ask them to do anything that's, well, legal, ethical, etc., and then have them write about it, right? So you could ask them to go look at 4 videos and tell you which one was the best. You might want to actually list which videos.
I'm sensing an infographic of how long the average Turker can stand on their head, Leslie.
But I mean, we could do that survey. Yeah, it could be a qualification group.
And I could just do that with the TW workflow.
Yeah, you could. It would be a better way to do it. Would be with actually a qualification test. But yeah, that's another story. That's for later. So yeah. So yeah, to watch a video and write a summary. So here's the way you would do that. And so your input, and so, all right, so there's the 3 pieces. You know what I need? I need my whiteboard, which unfortunately is not really in exactly a usable state. How can I do this? I can probably do it if I could write on the screen. That's a bad idea. Okay, I'll do it with words and then we'll see. So there are 3 pieces to the mTurk work. Well, I mean, there's pieces underneath the mTurk workflow itself. But so the mTurk workflow takes a document in, and there's a set of instructions that tell the Turker to do stuff. And then there's a document that comes out. Okay, so if we want them to review, and then of course there's a set, right, the set of instructions is key here. So the set of instructions is going to say something like, read the video below, watch the video below and write a summary of 120 words, okay? All right, so what's the input document? The input document has got to be a document with a video URL in it. Or it actually could be just the RSS feed out of YouTube, because that's going to have the URL. All right, so there's a couple different ways you can do that in order to make that happen. But in either case, it looks just like an input document that's a blog post. It's got a URL and it's got some content. The YouTube link is going to have null content, right? But the person can click the URL, YouTube opens, they watch the video, and then they write up their summary. So that's really easy to put together with nothing more than a TW workflow or a T2 workflow. Report bugs or something. Oh yeah, should be able to see the hits that I have supposedly created in RF in requester. My problem.
Hey Leslie, I have a question.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that a whiteboard behind you?
Well, it is, but it has a whole bunch of writing on it, and so why do you ask?
You haven't finished erasing it all yet?
I haven't finished erasing it, as you know by looking at it. So, all right, so Bobby was asking whether or not she should be able to see the hits that she created in RF over in requester.mturk. Yes, and she arrived at probably what's going on, which is sure enough she did. But I think it was because I had not clicked production hit, right? And that's, I mean, you know, there's only 2 ways I could have done that, right? I could have made production the default, or non-production, or sandbox the default. So, I mean, pick your poison, right? I mean, the fact is, yeah, anyway. What do you mean? I can see, okay, never mind. Okay, yeah, okay, thanks, Corey, for coming this up. So, enable load tags. Commented on. So Nolan posted a screenshot that says error, unable to load tags, and I have no context in order to interpret that. I have no idea where you got that and what that even means. So Nolan, You're going to have to give me a little bit more information about that. Nick, my hits are all production, but none seem to go to MTurk. Any issues at the moment? Nick says loads of budget. Nick, I will look at the error logs on your instance, but there is not any, no, it's not a uniform problem, right? So, yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but I'll take, do it now. Figure out where Nick is. Let's see. Okay, let's see. So then, Bobby, we're getting almost to the end here. Let's see. I found the RF help documentation about Amazon sign up to be excellent. See, oh, I actually kind of forgot about that. I should have. Oops, sorry. Yes, there is actually a documentation. There is documentation I did a while back. I would imagine that the user interface at MTurk is slightly different, but I think the steps are probably pretty much the same as they were. Bobby posted it in Slack, so you can find it there. It's a lesson in the online documentation for ResultFlow. And it's, yes, and you can see all your hits at requester MTurk.com, MTurk manage hits. And so that's, you literally just, go in your requester account and you click the manage button. Manage hits individually in the right corner. Okay, so that we've at least spun rapidly through everything that is on Slack. And now let me go back over to G plus. Okay, where there's been lots of activity since last I noticed. All right, so let's see. So Chad is asking, in the feeds, can you show me how to group all RSS feeds into a folder? I'd like to separate different types of content feeds by type of a folder. Sure, that's trivial. So on the feed dialog, and I can go live to show you this, but on the feed dialog, there's an add button, and you can press it more than once. It's kind of the end of the discussion. We could, I can show it to you live, but you can, I don't know, group all RSS feeds into a folder means. Now I will say that the top level folder is the same. So maybe that's what he's saying. He wants subfolders in feeds. Sad to say that might actually about half work, but I'd advise you not to do it. It wasn't really intended to work that way. So,
well, you can simply have more than one feed folder, but the only reason to separate them is to have them go into different workflows in the first place.
Well, I think what he's saying here, Dan, is he wants to have subfolders in feed, and the subfolders contain feed folders, I think, is what Chad Lawson is asking for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so, bear in mind, when we talk about a feed folder, it's a very special kind of folder, right? It's a feed. Well, it's a set of feeds, any number of feeds you'd like. And then all of the cons elements are the feed items. And so then the question is, under feeds, can you have a subfolder and then that have feed folders? Not intended to do that for a variety of icky technical reasons. Maybe someday, but not this day. Sad to say, it might actually kind of work, but I just advise you not to do it because there's bound to be something that'll break. Now, what you can do is you can use a naming convention, okay? And so, and even there, I'm not even sure that makes sense. It might make more sense to use a different persona. And so if you have, if you're Home Depot, good for you, and you have lawn and garden, okay, so yeah, you could have shovels and rakes and seeds and plants and grass, and use a naming convention on those feeds. But what you wouldn't want to do is have everything in Home Depot in one persona. You definitely want, tools and lumber separated out from lawn and garden into a separate persona. That would be a good thing to do. So whether or not you really ever technically need subfolders within feeds, I think can be argued. That may actually be, maybe you should be using personas differently. Richard Norris said he doesn't have access to Slack. And
I'm working with Richard on that. I've just resent his invitation again.
Good. All right.
Because, Slack is spamming his domain or something, probably.
Probably is, yeah. LS Tester, whoever LS Tester is, well, it's LS Tester according to Google.
That's Phil.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Phil has so many different social media accounts, he can never remember which one he's logged in as. He's
Oh my
probably
gosh.
chatting with several people in there.
Actually, I should know this, but since he's using the T workflow followed by another T workflow, I mean, that tells me who it is right there. So,
Wasn't me.
yeah, yeah. It appears that in doing this, that each iteration, the Turker work is appended to the last. That seems pretty good. However, I was attempting to format with a bit to make it easier on the Turker. Put a line of and give. In the process, I broke the answer template, not surprising under the circumstances. Is this the methodology you would take for an iterative process? Or, Phil, I'll get back to you on that as soon as I actually even understand your question. And you are boldly going where not anyone else has gone. So, um, um, oh yeah, so oops, I'm logged in as a testing Google account. Great. Okay. Yes, I see that now. It is Phil. So, uh, so Phil, let me get with you individually about that. If you'd like to go ahead and send me using the usual channel that you do, just tell me persona and and the folder that you're kind of at the root of this, crazy chain that you've got going on, and let me at least take a look at what you're doing, and I'll see if I can render an opinion on what's, good, bad, or indifferent. Okay, Richard Norris, good. Oh, thank you, Dan. Now, both items I sent have been produced and rejected by the filter. I believe I set the filter up backwards. Okay, and rejected. Good work. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Simon. Yes, I've done that too. Okay, even on last week's Hangout, I started doing it and caught myself. Let's see if my theory of the backwards filter is right. Well, yeah, and so first of all, bear in mind that even in version 3 before automatic filtering, a lot of us were getting really good work. Okay, so filtering is a plus, it's not a necessity. And so you might actually consider just taking the filter off and just making sure that stuff is working for you. Okay, and then carefully add limited filtering to it. And so, like, for example, grammar was a ride along. I would not have ever said, "Oh, gee, please, development team, build the grammar filter." I question whether or not that's actually ever going to be terribly useful, frankly. The spelling filter, I think, is going to be useful, but frankly, even that is like in the 10% case for short material. For longer material, I think it matters more. But like just the word count filter, cures 80% of the problems that we had in version 3 with mTurk. I would encourage you, so on a TW workflow, you almost always, not always, but almost always want a rejection filter. Okay. And so we'll look at an example of that when we go live. But if you're using an approval filter, it's a very, very, very special case. Just saying. Yes, it's easy on mTurk interfaces. See it and reject work. Go to manage it and everything. Okay, Dan. Richard, Dan, receive that. Oh, isn't associated with a branch reflecting. Okay, so looks like you and Richard still need to work that out, Dan. No, both.
Well, I don't know. Richard's in Slack, so.
Oh, he is? Well,
Yeah.
seems to have worked. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So I knocked out all my sport cases for the day. I don't know what your problem is.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The whole
Sport thing's pretty easy.
Yeah. Don't see where to see the rejected hits. Whiteboard, and you can erase it. Managed. Yeah, okay. People, I love that you're answering each other's questions. Thank you for that. Okay, Jamie Phillips asked, so finally an actual question I can answer. Did the 500 server error on the template get fixed? You were going to shoot a video about it. Okay, so the answer is yes and no, depending on what you mean by the question. The 500 server error was never actually a software error, it was a template error, okay? My fault, most things are. If you're getting a 500 server error on a template, it means the template's broken. Doesn't mean that RF is broken or there's something wrong with the document or your workflow setup. You know, it's that the template threw an error. Now, admittedly, it's not a very nice error. Okay, not very, you know, it doesn't really help you much in figuring out what to do about it. I get that. It's on the list. Okay, so don't mail support and say, hey, it would be greater if there was a better error message. I get that. Thanks. And so the 5 error just means that the template engine read the template, had a syntax error, and then threw that trace back, which doesn't do you any good, but it tells me what's wrong. Fantastic. I know what's wrong. What do you want to do about it? The only place right now where there are errors, okay, are in outdated templates. And so those are in personas that you created before the 4.0.2 release. The way you fix those is you go look at the new templates by creating a new persona and copying the text of that template that you want to use into the persona that you're currently using in it. All right. And so if I'm in, you know, project 1 and it has a template that's broken, I can do a create new persona, call it project 2. That would be brilliant. Go find that template, open it up, do a copy of all of the text in it, go back into project 1, find the template, open it up, select all delete, and then paste, right? Now, you don't have to restart the workflow or throw away the task or anything because the template is used in real time whenever you open up the task. So you dump the new template text into that template that's not working for you, you go back to your dashboard, you click the task, and voila, the 500 error is fixed. There's a simpler error. There's a simpler a way to do this if you want. What you can do is you can, in the persona that you have where the template error, so you can say, okay, 500 error. Oh God, here we go again, right? Go open the template, go all the way to the bottom, and you'll probably find there's a link to edit, workspace, something or other, bracket 1 bracket. That's usually the problem. There is not a second item in the workspace. And don't get me started on how this happened. Okay, it doesn't matter right now. But if you take out that, you know, you should, in most workflows, you should only see link to edit on the workspace item 0. Okay, so with just a little bit of knowledge, which is normally a dangerous thing, I know, you can actually fix the template in place if you don't want to copy the good one from a new persona. Okay, going forward, when you create a new persona, you're going to get templates that do not have those errors in them. Okay, so it's only for personas that you have where they need update. All right, Chad is asking, is this a bug, and or is it something simple I should try that I may have overlooked? Use this. I can use this login info to get into the VP main outside of ours. Let me look at the screenshot that he sent. And screen captures, by the way, are extremely useful to me. Sometimes better is even screen videos. I mean, I'm happy to look at screen captures and screen videos. Okay, he's getting the unable to load categories. Well, this is the only second blog that I've seen that actually has this problem. All right, so he's checked the social channel, general promotion tags. So for reasons unknown to me, we have this problem in our own blog on marketersbraintrust.com. I don't know the source of it. It's on the list. Okay. It looks like Chad is getting it as well. So here's the thing. Even if it's unable to load categories, you can still use the blog. It'll still post. Why we're getting this error in a small number of cases, I don't know. All right. And so what Chad shows here in the screenshot is he has typed the word general into the categories field, and you can absolutely do that. That's perfectly fine. You know, is this an error? Yes. Is it a work stoppage error? No. You can continue. All right. But I will note, if actually, would you please, Chad, just to, so I have more than just one example of this, would you please, you know, take the text of your message along with the other information about your blog. I don't need the login to the blog. What I do need is I just need the blog URL, right? So I can look at it externally. Yeah, okay. And just mail that to support. I should have finished that sentence, sorry. Mail that to support. Okay, well, speaking of support, I know we have support questions. According to this, about 10. So, plus a couple that are snoozed for more information. Let's see. All right, so let's gonna run through the list. So actually, and as we go through this, right, if you have more questions, please feel free to dump them in either Slack or on Google Plus, and we'll get to them in turn. And I still want to go through. Let's see. Okay, old template. Okay, I've already answered this. Yeah, anytime you get a task throwing a 500 error, it is a template problem. And one way to fix that. It says key profile. And so Mark McCreary, so I believe, Mark, I believe you fixed, I believe we've established it was IAM that was the problem, and using your root keys fixed the problem. If that's not true, then I need to know that. But as the last conversation we had in Slack, I believe that was the problem. So, so if I don't hear from you, that means that we're in agreement on that. Let's see. Carlin, I have a writer that I can hire. See, so Carlin is asking, I have a writer that I can hire that is highly qualified / previous employee for writing articles for the 3 blogs I'm about to implement using ResultFlow 4. How can I integrate a flow for each blog that would feed the featured category and only allow access to that flow by the writer of each of these blogs? Okay. Get a textbook integration, blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right, that's actually a really good one to demonstrate live. So we'll go ahead and do that. And I'll just go ahead. In fact, I'll defer going through the rest of the sports stuff. I'll show how to do that, because this is something probably everybody can benefit from Carlin's question. And then we'll also take a look at the mTurk flow so that everybody can see exactly how to set that up, and step by step. And I want to make sure that everybody gets it. So we'll take time on it, and I'll try to slow down the mouse, because there have been a couple comments about that. And then in either in Slack or on the Hangout page, please ask questions if you don't understand this. I want to make sure that we get the TW workflow absolutely nailed today. Okay. But first, we'll talk about Carlin's question. And let's see, I have to first get my ResultFlow instance open. And then and before we hang up the phone, we should also talk about what we're going to do next week too. So
next week.
Yeah. So very, very cool stuff coming next week. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually try to avoid Hall of Mirrors. I think I know how to do it.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And then
there we go. Woo!
Well, you can see it, but I don't think anybody else can.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. Well, although now I can't find.
Wow.
So everyone should see my screen at this point. Is that a true statement, Dan?
I see your screen at this point.
Excellent. That's good. Okay. And let's see. I should be presenting everybody. So when you talk, it doesn't go away, right?
If I talk, it doesn't go away, right?
Got it. Okay, good. Okay, so here we have, I created a persona named Week 4 demo. But what I'm going to do is, and we'll get to that in a minute, because that actually has the workflow running in it. And it looks like I've got content coming back, which was in the last 45 minutes, which is cool. All right, so, but let's do one called, we'll call it Carlin's question. Carlin's question. All right. So this is about really how to arrange multiple streams, right? That, so he wants to have, I have a writer that can hire, blah, 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 let's see, using ResultFlow. how can I integrate a flow for each blog that would feed the featured category and only allow access to that flow by the writer for each of those blogs? Which, I mean, that's not quite, I think, yeah, that's okay, whatever. It's like Japanese product description. But so the way we do that, I mean, the easiest way, frankly, is with personas. And so, because bear in mind, right, when you invite a member, you invite that member to a particular persona. And so that's the first thing to realize is that if you want to scope the permissions of a worker in ResultFlow, that is scoped to persona. All right. Now, there's also some capability scoping in terms of whether they're collaborator or manager. And frankly, that's probably not perfect. So don't completely depend on that. But but certainly within the context of personas, it's perfect. So all right, what I really want to do is I want to say I want to call this Carlin 1, and then I want to create another one named Carlin 2. And then when I jump into create credentials and venues, okay, those are going to be different based upon the blog that they're talking to. And so I don't want to do this. This is too much typing. But so you credential a blog, right? You create a venue for it, and then in that venue you indicate what category it's going to, and he says it's going to go to featured. But in Carlin 1 and Carlin 2, I'm going to specify different venues. Now, it's the same blog, right? Just repeated in those different venues. And the venue itself is going to say featured in both cases, but it's going to be a different, no, is it a different blog or different category? Yeah, different blog. Sorry, different blog. I lost track of this question. All right. And then in Carlin 1, I'm going to invite one worker, and in Carlin 2, I'm going to invite a different worker. And I think that's what he's asking for, because he says he wants the permissions segregated. At the same time, he leads off with, he says he can hire a highly qualified employee for writing articles on the 3 blogs. So it's not clear exactly, that's really true. If he's going to have that one writer write on all 3 blogs, would feed and only allow access to that flow by the writer for each of those blogs. And so I'll describe the other way as well. So if you want to have different people segregated, they do it with personas, right? So that one person can write in one persona and the other person can write in a different persona, okay? If that's not what you mean, if instead what you mean is you want to have multiple venues within the same persona and multiple and workflows for each of those, then you probably use some sort of naming convention in folders. And so you're gonna have a set of feeds coming in, and you're gonna have some the meat of the sandwich is in the middle in the content folders, and you've got venues going out. And so you're probably going to have some subfolder hierarchy here, where you say, let's say, blog 1, and then blog 2, and then inside of blog 1 and blog 2, you have, writing on MTurk, and scheduling to the blog, okay? You build workflows on each of these, and they're inside blog 1. You have something identical to that over here, right? In fact, you can probably do it with copy and paste if you're really clever, right? So you just do this and say selected items and copy to, and you put it over on the other side, and boom, bam, bang. And so you have the same structure over there. Now go build out the workflows. And by the way, you have to do it that order. You can't build the workflows and then do the copy, just so that you know. Okay. That's interesting. I didn't refresh this. That's kind of strange. That's another bug, by the way. User interface bug. Let me see if it refreshes it now. Yeah, it does. Weird. Anyway, so that would be a way of segregating the workflow, but not the permissions, right? Anybody you invite onto this persona can see all of this stuff. Now, they won't get assigned tasks, right? And they can't steal somebody else's task or something weird like that, okay? And if you make them collaborator, they shouldn't, I believe this is true everywhere, they shouldn't be able to do things like delete tasks. All right, so I'm not sure exactly which model you're talking about, but those are the two ways to do it. Segregating permissions for workers by persona, or segregating work flows within a persona using essentially content hierarchy, okay? Good, and so,
And so for basically any of these workflow steps, that's someone is assigned to do that workflow, right?
Sort of. I mean, some workflow steps are completely automated.
Right, but I'm talking about the things that people do get assigned to a person to be done by that person, and so another person can't come along and do their stuff.
Exactly. Now, and that opens up the question about workflow or worker groups. And worker groups will never be implemented in this workflow model, but in the next workflow model, it will. In the workflow engine, it will be. But right now, there are no groups. So you can't say, I'm going to assign this to my pool of writers, and whoever picks it up first is the one who gets it. There are 5 writers, and so whoever gets it first is one writes. Don't have that functionality right now. You're assigning it to a specific person. Now, if that person evaporates on you, and we have that happen, then you can go in and reassign the work from that worker to somebody else. In fact, and that's over on the members dashboard. I can show you where that is right quick, just in case you want to know. So you go into members. How come I'm not? Oh, it doesn't show the owner account. It only shows, yeah, well, it should work. It should work for me, yeah. So from me to when there's nobody else to assign it to. But that's how you assign it. And you can say in persona all, or you can in a particular one. So for example, this is how you might load, say, okay, well, I want Bob to quit working in persona 1 and start working in persona 2. And so anything in persona 1 that Bob has, I'm going to assign to Bill. And you can do that here. So you can select him, select a new person, and select the one where you want to reassign the work. Right. So you can at least, you can manage your team that way. You just can't do it with groups. Put it that way. So don't worry about, oh, I had a VA leave and now I can't get any of that work completed. That's not true. Just you can assign it to a new person. Okay. So let's see. I don't know if Carlin's on the hangar or not as to whether that answered his question. But oh well, yes. He said thank you very much. So I assume that did. Otherwise, he wouldn't have thanked me. So I'm going to go ahead and close that case, Carlin, as resolved. Okay, so let me see. Well, while I'm in here, I'll show the TW workflow setup, and then we'll get back into support cases. So let's see. So first, there's feeds, and so it's a sandwich, right? Feeds on one side, venues on the other. Content, the workflow meets in the middle. So here I created a feed for Ma's blog, and pretty simple, right? Named it Ma's. There we go. Nothing to it. If you wanted to aggregate, this is kind of a question that was sort of being asked earlier. Yes, you can add more than one in here. So you can have SEO roundtable. It could be added to this, and then you probably want to. I don't know. You could change this to Bozo. No, okay, maybe you wouldn't. But you could change it. Change the name of that to reflect it was more than one source. All right, on the venue side, so there's the gazinas, right? So here's the gazautas. I have just the test blog. Pretty simple. Saw this last week or week before, whenever the heck we did it. Nothing's changed there. I'm not doing anything fancy with categories. I just threw the tag Leslie on there, so it's easy for me to go through and delete stuff. You could certainly add tags there if you want to, or categories rather, and you can just type one in, okay, and it'll create it. Nothing new to see here. Move on. All right, so let's look at the meat in the middle, which is content. And so here what I've done, and this is somebody asked about this. So these there's a couple different ways. There are several different ways to sort the contents of a folder. So name, title, and by date. And so if you want these to appear in some sort of sensible order, then you can use numbers. Okay. Now bear in mind that this is it's a text ordering, and so if you have one named 10, something else, guess where that gets sorted? Oh, well, wow, I did it right. Impossible. I'm not believing that. Yeah, that's better. Okay. That's what should happen. That was a peculiarity of just the way the user interface updates. It threw it at the end initially. It didn't impose a sort order. And so this obviously is not what you really want if you happen to have 10 steps in your workflow. So of course, for those people who are in the advanced category, that the way you get around that is you'd do that. If it really mattered to you, that's how you would do it. Okay. But when does that actually matter? Well, if you get lots and very complex workflows, Phil, then maybe you need to do something like that. But most of the time, you're not gonna need that. But that's at least a way that you can get this into some sort of sensible order. Okay. So in this particular case, I've got a very, very simple one because I'm not doing anything fancy on the selection side. I'm still just doing selection manually. And so anything I want to do writing, anything I want the writers mtriggers to write about, I dump into this folder. Once I review it, once they write and review it, once they write and I review it, there we go. It gets dropped into scheduled to publish, or whatever I call that. Scheduled to post. Okay, so what are the two workflows? Well, let's look at the scheduler first. That's the the easy one. And to review, remember these are Greenwich Mean Time. And this is one of these days. This will be pretty printed for you, but that's literally a cron expression. If you want to look it up, you can actually parse. You can actually learn how to read these if you want. Just go to Wikipedia and look up cron expression, and that's exactly what these are. And so this is just schedule a movement, and this happens to be every 3 hours, just because I was lazy when I was setting it up, like so. All right. So again, no new information here. I just want to review this to make sure people are okay. Yes, I got it. There's a scheduler workflow. Great. Okay, fine. So anything that goes into this, let's see. Let's cover the other aspect, which is what's the target of this folder? It is test blog. Okay, so anything that gets into this folder, into folder 02 scheduled to post, every 3 hours, this scheduler workflow wakes up and copies, I think in this case, one item over into the venue named test blog. All right, pretty simple. This workflow right here, and so we'll take apart all the pieces of that. I mean, there are several pieces. So first of all, the target, so the output folder is 02-schedule to post. So anything that's completed through this workflow. Now, what does that mean? That means the Turker picked it up, submitted it, it was not rejected by the filter, and it was accepted by the review step. And that's me as the assignee right now. Here's the task template for the review step. Okay, so this is what I see when I'm reviewing the article, and we need to talk about this because this is a problem for many of you right now that's my fault again, because of a screwed up template. Here's the hit definition, and then here is the filter definition. And oh yes, it's a production hit. Okay, now I've also, you notice here I say show hit if it was expired or all answers were rejected. I actually checked this one. I was hoping that actually one of them would get, at some point I can get one to expire so you can see what that looks like, but whatever. Okay, so let's look at how this thing is built, all the pieces. So let's start with the filter. So this one I've named reject abstracts less than 100 or more than 200. And you can name whatever you want to, right? And so this is it. Rejection region. Abstract must be 120 to 200 words. Make this at least semi-friendly and readable. Don't use profanity. Don't use cryptic terminology and abbreviations that no one's going to understand, because guess what? If this filter rejects the item, that text, that rejection reason, gets sent to the Turker. And you don't really want to make enemies of those people. They talk among themselves, and they know who you are by your requester name. And so if your requester name, gets badly received, okay, now it's not like you make one mistake, you're blackballed for life. It's not like that. I've screwed up. I've rejected good work. Somebody was just talking about that. Probably what we did is, if his filter was backward, he rejected good work. Okay, you're going to piss some people off, but it's not okay. It's not the end of the world. Don't sweat that. But if you make a habit of it, if you go reject 1,000 hits that you should have paid for, that's going to be a problem. Okay. Now, because this is a rejection hit, typically you're going to use at least one condition, right? So if the body has number of words greater than 200, then I want to reject it. If the body has number of words less than 100, then I want to reject it. If I do something really dumb like this, okay, that's obviously never gonna work, right? Because it cannot match both of those conditions at the same time. And it is what it is. This is kind of a, if you will, you do have to know a little bit about logic. You have to understand the basis of that in order to be able to use this, and that's the way it is. All right, so this is a very simple filter. I would encourage you to start with something really simple like this, because this one, as long as you get the logic of it right, you won't screw it up, and you won't be throwing away work that you probably shouldn't have thrown away, right? And it'll at least get you started. And that's what I want you to do, is make sure you get started. If you occasionally throw away something for 28 cents, whoop-de-doo, right? That's, just bear in mind, you're spending little tiny amounts of money. So don't sweat that. If you happen to, that's the reason pay and discard, as we'll see in a minute, that's the reason pay and discard is one of the options on the review step. Because sometimes I'll say, well, yeah, it's pretty good. It met the requirements, but I don't like it. Well, am I going to reject it? And if I'm going to reject it, what rejection reason am I going to use? I just don't like it. That doesn't wash for me. That's not the way I want to be treating Turkers, okay? All right, so that's the filter. That's the first step. Now let's look at the hit definition. Now, please, if you have questions about this as I'm going, dump them in Slack or in Google Plus, and I'll stop and back up, okay? And Dan, if you could watch Google Plus, that'd be helpful. Is it possible to change the mTurk requester name? I don't think it's possible to change it. Mary Brophy asked that. I think you start a new account, but I could be wrong about that. I haven't ever tried to change my name. Do you want the mTurk to know that there is a filter to reject filter, or for too many words, or will it help this, or it will help spammers? Carissa, that's an interest. She asked you a question whether you want them to know that there's an automatic rejection filter. I make it plain in the. I think it's fairly plain. We'll go review the template again. I mean, you could certainly add more words to that if you want to, but I make it pretty plain that we're not going to accept work that doesn't meet this criteria. And the fact that we're doing it automatically or not, I don't think I need to tell them. Let's see. All right. So, did you see anything else pop up in Slack that we need to handle before I move on?
No, sir.
All right, good. So here we go. So here's my mTurk, my hit definition. Okay, and it's technically it's a hit type with some other stuff. I mean, so if you look at Amazon terminology, this would be a hit type plus some stuff that has to do only with ResultFlow. But anyway, so let's edit this to see what it looks like, and let's step through this. Now, the first thing to realize is that these first three fields appear on mTurk. In fact, I mean, everything down to question template, right, is all straight out of the mTurk book. Okay, so write a 120 word summary of a blog post is the title of the hit as it appears on mTurk. Okay, and the description also, please help us create content for a marketing news site, blah blah blah. Okay, The keywords are searchable by Turker. So all of this data should be written with the view that it's being viewed by Turkers, all right? So make it attractive. Don't use, don't cuss, whatever, hate language. It's gonna be bad for you. So that's, make that at least make sense and be reasonably attractive. You don't want to say, do this incredibly boring piece of work for me because I'm a sloth, right? No, that's not really going to get you what you want. Actually, it might be interesting though. Do a 5-cent hit on that and see. Anyway, okay. So then let's go through these times and payment. We'll talk about max assignments here in a minute. So assignment duration. So the Turker goes out and looks at the hit and says, yeah, I want to do some of that, and they accept the hit. Now, if you haven't done this on Sandbox, I encourage you to do it. Submit without hitting production equal yes, and go out to the Sandbox and answer one of your own hits to see what it looks like. I really encourage you to do that. Because the process is essentially kind of threefold. They're going to see a list of hits, and for you, what you do is you go out to Sandbox and you type in your requester name, like mine's left side for the one that I use for all this work. So I type in left side and hit return, and it shows all of the hits that are available, open hits from left side. I then click on one, and I guess I could have submitted one to go do this. We could do that right quick if we need to. And I go look at it and go, oh yeah, that looks like fun. And I hit the accept hit button. That pulls it out of the open available pool so nobody else can grab it, so that I can work on it. The assignment duration is the amount of time that I have between the point I hit the accept button to the time I hit the submit button. Submit means I'm done with the work and it gets sent to the requester. So worker's done his job, right? This says I'm only allowed, as a worker, I'm only a Turker, I'm only allowed 1 hour to complete the task. Well, to write 120 words, I think that's sufficient, right? Now, what about the auto-approve delay? This is, and by the default set to 1 hour, you should always change that to something bigger than that. But the auto, well, not always. For Turker T, you would. Yeah, but anyway. So the auto-approve delay is from the moment the Turker hits the submit button. That's the amount of time you have that you could reject it. So the way Amazon built this platform, it is actually, from that perspective, it is in favor of Turkers. So if I submit a bunch of work and I ignore the results, the Turker gets paid. And they get paid, in this case, 1 day, 24 hours, after they hit the submit button, okay? And we talked a little bit about this, I believe, last week in terms of how you schedule, holiday times and weekends and all that kind of thing, and what kind of a schedule you have to put together, to make sure that you didn't have to be reviewing work on a Saturday or Sunday, okay? And those are things to think about when you have this auto-approved time. On the other hand, so obviously you didn't want to make that, you wouldn't want to make that like 10 minutes or one minute. That's insane. For something you're going to review, right? Now, for one of the completely automated ones, okay, maybe that makes sense. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to make this 20 days, right? If you end up in a situation where you have lots and lots of hits that are not paid for 5, 6, 8, 10 days, and they're not rejected either, that's not going to look good to the Turker community. Again, it's okay if you do it a couple times by mistake, or even 10 or 20 or 50, but don't do it a bunch. And you're just not treating people right either. That's the other thing, ethics issue. The hit lifetime is how long your hit is available on the platform to be worked. So that's the time between when you submit the work as a requester, when the hit goes live over on MTurk. If it's not picked up, in this case within 1 day, and that means when somebody hits the accept button. If somebody Turker doesn't hit the accept button within 1 day, it expires. It's no longer open hit. It's no longer available on the platform. Right. So those 3 times are reasonably important to understand what they mean. Now, how what's involved in optimizing them? Frankly, not much. Okay. If it's a complicated task, maybe it needs more than an hour. Is there a reason to use less than an hour? Well, I suppose It would depend upon what extent people have a, if people accept and then don't work the hit and then it goes back into the pool, right? This means it's not available for an hour. Now, I have watched that happen on the platform, so I may have some different recommendations in the coming months, because now I have different things going on behind the scenes, so I can actually log whether people when they accept it but they don't submit. I'm actually seeing that granularity of detail in my logs. So it may very well be that I can, in a couple of months, I can do some statistics here and tell you that maybe it's better to use, like 30 minutes here instead of an hour. I don't know that yet. Okay. I've just used an hour for, I don't know, 8 years. So the auto approve delay is the one where you're going to have to think that one through a little bit to make sure that it fits, that manual review fits with your workflow, right? So your manual review workflow fits with that time. That's important. That's important to think through. The hit lifetime, same thing. I've used as much as 7 to 10 days on these when it was something that, and that gets to it. That's about how much you're paying as much as it is anything. So the more you pay, the faster your work will get done. The less you pay, the longer it will take to get picked up and completed. There is also a different curve relating to quality. So on this particular one, I mean, I submitted 5 articles for abstracting 15 minutes before we went live. Okay, and I already have them back, and it took about 45 minutes, I guess, for all 5 of them to come back. But I paid 30 cents. Now, I might be able to get the same quality of work at 20 cents. It'll just take a little bit longer. Now, what if I go down to 12 cents? It take a lot longer and probably will get lesser quality. Okay, so there are 2 things happening at the same time there. So what if I went up to 45 cents? Well, it'll happen a lot faster. Will I get higher quality work than when I'm at 30 cents? Probably not. We get really good quality work at 30 cents. We were doing 25 cents. I think Phil's doing 28 cents now. I've tested 25, 28, 30, and 35, and I can't find any difference in terms of quality. Now, it wasn't a huge sample set, okay, granted. So, whatever this number is, and just be aware that sometimes faster is better. And so if, the difference between 25 cents and 30 cents, well, that's 5 cents. And how many articles are you going to do a week? Oh, let's say you do 30 abstracts a week. Well, okay, 30 times, that's $1.50. Is this really worth optimizing? No, go ahead and pay 30. Because what will happen is you're going to have less work that expires. That's the thing. And so a couple of people have asked about that. It's like, what about rework? What about stuff that doesn't get picked up? So it expires. Well, yes, indeed, it sits in the input folder where the rule is running and just sits there until you happen to notice and resubmit the work. And I'll show you how to resubmit work. Well, but you know what? If you're paying 30 or 32 cents a piece, it's unlikely it's going to go unworked. Somebody is going to pick it up. If you pay only 22 cents, higher likelihood that it doesn't get picked up. Okay, so you can make those trade-offs, right? You can actually pay a little bit more, and now you've got Turkers who probably have alarms ringing whenever your requester ID shows up. Okay, so that covers time and money questions. Anybody have any questions about that? Dan, are you noticing?
There's a different question in the Hangout page.
Oh, let's see what Steve asks.
So Steve asks, is there an RF feature wish list that we can see and I was going to contribute to? He's asking for copyscape filtering.
Yeah. So copyscape has actually been on the list for a while, and there are pluses and minuses about that, but it is on the list. There's not really, right now, there's not a kind of an official wish list, an enhancement request. However, by all means, send it to support, and then I'll take the support request, I'll reply and close it, but put your enhancement request on my development list. I'm not sure if CopyScape actually is still on my development list or not, but it should be. There's also a plagiarism filter, which and we haven't talked about yet. And there are probably some issues in that plagiarism filter with respect to just raw HTML from the web, and so there's probably some additional work that needs to be done in there before I would actually call it a production-worthy thing. But it's in there, and I've been playing with it. It certainly works with plain text. It's when we start talking about HTML that we run into some issues. CopyScape, certainly has some advantages, and the integration of it is not that terrible. So, it is on the list. It is on the list. Frankly, what I haven't found, now this will not be true when you start talking about long-form feature content, I'll grant, but with respect to abstracting, I've never found that CopyScape was a meaningful filtering. The only problem we've had with abstracting is where people do extensive quotation or copy and paste from the original into the abstract. So, and that CopyScape is a really long way around the barn to detect that, and that's what the plagiarism filter is actually for.
Yeah, with CopyScape, I think you've got it might not even catch everything that you're worried about there. So
exactly, yeah. Okay, so that's the time and money stuff, and like I said, don't overthink this tremendously. Now, let's talk about max assignments for just a moment. So you can literally do, on a TW workflow, you could have more than one. And what's going to happen when you do that? And we'll go look at that. In fact, let's go look at it now before I cover the rest of these. So if we go look at one of these tasks that came back, okay? And only 3 of them came back, actually. That's interesting. So 2 are still out there. And so here's my review task, okay? And then there's the all items rejected by filter. Really? Oh, really? Yeah, look what they did. Let's see. Huh, interesting. So they must have copied and pasted or something like that. That's usually what happens. Somebody will just dump a big chunk of the article in. And you see, the only reason I'm seeing these, and I'm not actually seeing the rejected work, is because I checked that box. Okay, here's one that was not rejected. And so you've got, here's the original stuff, okay? And then here is the assignment. And so the assignment is what is sent in response to a hit. So the human intelligence task can be associated with any number of submitted assignments, okay? And this is the worker ID on the platform, incidentally, which we'll talk about statistics much later. And so here I can go look at what they did. Have you ever Googled your own name? What did it say? Did you agree? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, great, whatever. It's lovely, lovely, lovely text. He didn't actually use multiple paragraphs like I asked him to, which is a problem. Of course, I could just go ahead and say, all right, well, sure, let's go ahead and clean that up. So what would happen if I put 2 instead of 1 on that hit definition? There's going to be there's going to be 2 of these down here. So there are going to be 2 assignments returned. And now what do I do with it? Well, I could actually accept them both. I could reject them both. I could accept one or the other. The response is going to be the output document is going to have all of what I accepted, okay? Everything I approved. And so and that's going to be in one document, okay? So what are you going to do with one document if you have multiple abstracts in it, right? Not exactly clear why you would ever do that. And that's, I mentioned in passing why you probably always want to have number of assignments equal 1 on an mTurk TW workflow. On a T2 flow, that's how you figure out how many people, that's where you specify how many people are voting on, the quality of the input, okay? So just bear that in mind. That's, what that number is the number of assignments that are going to appear here in the review task, all right? Let's go back to the head and complete that. Did that make sense to people? I know that's kind of geeky, but So for MTurk TW workflow, you're almost always going to use just one. Okay. Let's see. So now the question and answer templates, and then we actually have to go back and look at the TW review template as well. So we've already talked about, the hit and answer. So why are there two? This hit abstract or this hit template is what goes to Amazon to configure what the MTurker sees. The answer template is what takes the stuff back from Amazon and extracts and formats it for use in ResultFlow. They're two very different kinds of templates, and that is the way it is. If you try to do that, it will not work. Unable to load questions from selected question template. Okay. So you have to do the right thing. Now, if you use the rate the abstract quality hit, it looks like it probably works, but it's not going to make any sense. It's going to be a very odd looking hit by the time it gets to Amazon. You want to make sure that you use the right thing here. Okay. We're not going to talk about hit review policies, and we already talked about qualification requirements, and I'll repeat again, don't make this so stiff that you don't end up getting work done. If you just get the locale and the approval rate, something reasonable, you're 90% of the way there. Right? Don't go crazy with qualification requirements. Hit review policies, I'll mention in passing, these are things which are done automatically on the Amazon platform. Okay, so you can think of it as a kind of review that occurs, but it's done as part of the Amazon infrastructure. We'll talk about those later. Right? It's like walk before you crawl. And in fact, this is run before you fly jets. Okay. So just bear in mind that this is here, and don't even try to understand it, Phil, until we get further down the road. Okay, so then we covered the rejection filter, right? And then we've got the hit definition, and now we're going to go look at the workflow I created from it, and this is the order that I did it in. So there's the workflow, and I'll create it again so you can see it, and then we need to talk about the abstract, about the Turker review task, right? So this is saying that, the output is scheduled to post, and here's the hit definition, here's the rejection filter, yes, it's production, everything's hunky-dory there. We've already looked at this. This is good. I'm the one assigned to do the work. All right, so what does it look like to actually build that? And so let's go. So we'll do it right here, just for fun. Okay, so workflow rule. It runs on the documents in the folder. It's an MTurk TW, that's Turker worker. Where do I want to move the reviewed item? I want to put it in scheduled to post. The task template that it's asking for here is the one that I see when I'm doing the review. Now, it's an abstract review, but there's one difference between abstract review and the Turker abstract review. And I know you're thinking, wait, I don't have that template. You're right, my bad. Here's my hit definition, and here's my rejection filter. Want to make sure it's rejection, not acceptance. And then we're going to click the production, and I don't want to see expired ones. Okay, that's it. That's all that I need to do. I always take like 1.5 or 2 seconds to pause and read this to make sure I got it right. Because, well, even last week, I had this backwards, if you'll recall, right? So there we're good to go, and we hit create workflow. Now let's talk about that template that you're missing and why it's a little bit different. I'm going to remove this rule. We don't need it. Let's go into templates. And let's first look at the abstract review template. Scroll, get this a little bigger. All right. Must be 5,200 words, link to the original, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The difference is all the way down here at the end. And so here it says, in the abstract review template, it says summary for your review, and it says link to edit.workflow items 0. Now, for those of you who are having 500 errors, you probably have some set of text and below this. So you have another paragraph here, and you have something that looks like that. Oops, not quite like that. That would cause an error too. You have something that references link to edit workflow items 1. That does not exist. That was a development. It's part of a development copy that actually is probably never going to see the light of day. So you should only be seeing this on your abstract review task. Okay. And all this really means is the first item, because it's index 0, that's in the workflow, and then we're going to create a link to edit it. Right. That's what that means. It's as clear as that. All right. What's different with the Turker workflow, though, however, the Turker abstract review, is that this is not the summary for review. This workflow item 0 is actually the original item. But the original item is also available on that screen anyhow, so we don't need it at all. All right, so to create a Turker abstract review, you really just take the abstract review, hang on just 1 second, and you delete that stuff at the bottom. So right here, you'll notice that I don't have, I'll open that up. I don't have that link to edit at the bottom. I just deleted it. Everything else is the same. And so when I go look at that task on my dashboard, oh, hey, some more work came in. Which one of these was the one that had a valid assignment? Yeah. But you see, this you'll recognize as being the text of that template, and there's no link to edit down here at the bottom like there is on an abstract review. And the reason is because that's in this, well, if it's not rejected, it's in here, right? That's where you find that assignment to be reviewed. So you can name this, I named this Turker abstract review, and when I roll, let's see, when am I doing that? Saturday, I believe. I'll have to check that. But Saturday, I should be rolling another minor update, 4.0.3. Now, in that update, there will be this Turker abstract review will be added to the default templates that are created in a new persona, not an existing one. I can't update your existing, I can, but I'm not going to update your existing personas. It has a bunch of other issues. When you do that, it's a bad idea. If you have something named that, then you get a collision and everything, bad stuff happens. So I don't do that, right? But I can put it in that special area that's hidden from you, where when you create a new persona, you get these default templates. And so this will be added to your set of default templates. But you can just as easily, I'll show you how to create it for yourself. Abstract review, duplicate. And you'll find it as copy of abstract review. Let's edit it. Let's call it, I'll have to call it something different, right? Review Turker abstract. Go down here to the bottom of this, delete that last paragraph, and you're done. That's it. That's all you have to do. If you want to come in here and change the, well, you probably ought to change this to be the same. You want to change that? That's great. Whatever. And now you have a template you can use for reviewing. If you use the other template, it'll work fine. It's just that it doesn't really say the right thing. All right. So if we go into abstract review, let's say that you used abstract review as the review step in the TW workflow. Well, the only problem with it, the only quote unquote bug, is that text right there, because that's going to link not to the summary for your review. That's going to look to the original. That's going to link to the original. That's okay. You're going to figure that out. Well, you might, maybe your worker won't, whatever. But so it's not very far wrong. It won't give you a 500 error, but it also doesn't make sense. It's not quite correct. So, I'd encourage you to, wait, if you want to wait for me to upload yours on Saturday, great. Otherwise, it's really simple to just create your own copy of abstract review, rename it, and you're on your way. Okay. Any questions about that?
I have a question about that.
Okay.
Maybe it's just because I'm slow. Why don't I just change the existing copy of abstract or something.
Okay, you could do that, but that's the one that you would use for a normal, quote unquote, normal workflow, where you're using, for example, a processor. And so, and for the processor template, I mean, if you're reviewing the work of somebody who has, done, the input document, right? You want to be able to see the result of the work. Well, that's where it is, right? So it's just, yeah, right. So abstract review is used in a different kind of workflow context, and that's when you use it. So yeah, okay. Good grief, it's 3:45. Heavens mercy. Okay.
Well, it's only 2:45 here, Leslie, so you could just get on a plane.
Yeah, really fast airplane. Yeah. Do you have a breakdown of what you pay for each task? Example, proofing, writing abstracts versus commentaries. Good question, Kristen. There's no bright line about that. And so first of all, we've never, in version 3, we didn't really have an ability to do anything except write abstracts, okay? Because the template was fixed. So now, I know Phil's been experimenting with some stuff, and I've been doing some different things, particularly with the T2 workflow in terms of reviewing. And so I can tell you what I've done, but I cannot say, and on abstracts versus commentaries. I know Phil can talk to you about that. I've played with that a little bit as well. So first of all, let's talk about abstracts versus commentaries. And so you notice I said 120 word abstract. I just arbitrarily increased the size because I think it'll look meatier, look kind of nicer. I think 200 words is too long for a quote unquote abstract, right? And so what's a commentary? Well, is a commentary really a longer abstract, or is it a different kind of writing? And I think Dan would argue it's a different kind of writing. And so but to your point about pricing, the length of the length of the document is not, it's not like cents per word. It's not linear with cost. And so, I mean, literally the 100-word abstract, 120-word abstract, I could see no difference in terms of how fast or how the quality of work that was being done. I could pay 28 or 30 cents for either one of them, and I got just as good a turnout, if you will, from Turkers. So, given that, heck, you might as well have 120. That's 100, right? Now, in terms of something longer than that, you might run into resistance. If you have a Turker to write 500 words, and you only want to pay 28 cents for it, you probably are not going to get a high quality result, because they're going to be counting their time doing that and going, this is too, I'm just going to pour stuff in here, whatever, I'm just going to write some stuff. If you pay $1, you're probably going to get hosed too, right? I mean, that's probably not what you want to do. So longer term, I believe, though, the way we do this is we split up the task into multiple smaller tasks. And that's one of the things that the T2 workflow starts to do for us, right? So we've got a writing task, and then instead of having a worker review it, like us or a VA, we have like 3 or 5 or whatever, some odd number works better than even, number of Turkers review the result of that. And so for that, what I've done, let's see, I think I did 28 cents for the writing, and I think I did 15 cents, if memory serves, 12 or 15 cents for the review step. And I bet I could drive the review step price down. I think that's probably too much. I bet I can drive it down to 10 cents, maybe even lower. But I mean, you start getting sub 10 cents now, you got to worry about how soon the work gets picked up and some things like that. And so it's probably, again, it's probably over optimizing, right? You probably don't want to drive it down that far. But
yeah, I think you want to offer people at least a 2-digit income.
yeah, right.
For your work.
And there's a lot of things that Amazon does this as well. But you can see academic projects are doing this too. They'll do a classification of photos, right? So is this a beach scene, a mountain scene, or whatever, something like that. And so it's a look at the picture and then check one of the radio buttons, and that they're doing them for 3 to 5 cents. And you wonder how this is even possible. And so Turkers that spend a lot of time doing this, they actually have special browser plugins, special interfaces, and things like that that makes it easy for them to go through lots and lots of tasks rapidly. Let's see, adding an image to a TW workflow. Can you show the step for adding an image to a TW workflow? Well, okay, yeah, sort of, kind of, sort of. Jamie's asking that question. Can I show adding an image to a TW workflow? She means adding an image to the result of a TW workflow, to a document that was created by a Turker. Adding an image using a Turker is problematic. You'd have to, right now, I recommend using a worker to do that until other things can be sorted out, because it's not a ResultFlow problem, it's where the hell do you put the image? That's the problem.
Well, also, where did they get it? I'd love to trust Turkers with image rights, but I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean that, and actually some of that, frankly, we can control with. Well, let's see. How do we do that? Yeah, it's a little bit, maybe slightly tricky. Well, I mean, if it's from an archive, like whatever is, what was the one just recent, New York Public Library, for example, somebody posted in, and thanks who did that, in Slack, something like that. I mean, you just pick from the URL, just, say, okay, wait, that's the wrong URL, so we're going to, I'm not going to use it. We use the script workflow for that. Probably even use a regex filter now that I think about it. Reject it if it doesn't have that in there or something. Anyway, but that's the deeper issue is if it's an image that, I mean, if it's an image you're going to source from that location, right? So if you're going to, like New York Public Library, okay. So if what you're going to do is you're going to take that URL and stick it in the documents you're hosting, great, that'll work. That's not the usual, that's not usually what you want to do. What you usually want to do is you want to take an image, host it on your own domain, right, and link to it from your article. That's a problem, right? Where do you put it? How do you get it up there? How does a person take that image and put it where it needs to be so that you can reference it in the text? And so in the template that I have as an example, as an example only, is processor add image. And you'll notice that there's a few kind of open items here to solve. Like, how about upload the resized image to our S3 account? Well, it's not my S3 account, sorry. It's whatever account you provide, for your worker to use. And then copy that link, insert it into the source document. Well, this is as straightforward as you can make the task because of just the technology limitations, not ResultFlow. I'm just saying the web. All right, you've got to host the image somewhere. If you're going to resize it, obviously not linking to it directly. And so to integrate this into the existing, into this workflow, well, it's easy. I mean, the workflow part's easy. What's not easy is all of the rest of that stuff. Where are you putting the images, right? And who's putting that image into the document? And how are you controlling what image they're using, as Dan points out? So, if we just do, but to the point, I'll answer as much of the question I can. So we're going to change this to, pardon me. Good grief. I apologize. I'm not over this stuff yet. And so, since we have something else here already, right? Okay, well, let's reuse it. Add image. Okay, well now we actually want to put add image in the middle here. Oh, I should have named it 4. I should have named it 2. I don't know what I was doing. So I want to get rid of the scheduler for right now. Cancel workflow. Oh, wait a minute. Where am I? No, I don't want to do that. I'm being an idiot. Are you sure? No, I don't want to do that. I want to go back. I want to leave that alone. Let me fix this. And I've got my own self confused about what step is in. There. All right, so now, after the after Turk has written the summary, then actually instead of dumping it into schedule the post, I'm going to dump it into add image. So I'm going to delete this, remove that rule, and I'm going to rewrite the rule to go into the add image folder. So here are documents in the folder, mturk processing TW. And then let's see, that's the same, but now I want to put it into add image. I'm going to use, hell, I'll use my new one. What did I call it? Turk or abstract review, right? Or review Turk or abstract. It was review Turk or abstract. Let me quit it. Use that hit definition. My rejection filter is reject if it's less than 100, greater than 200. It's a production hit. And I don't want to show expired ones. Create workflow rule. So now this rule is dumping it into add image. Okay, well now add image, it doesn't have any workflow on it, so that's all I did. It's end of the line. It's never actually going to get into the scheduler. So what I need here is I need a workflow that tells somebody to actually go execute that job of adding an image. And I'm going to call it add image, by the way. And so in processor, and I'm going to use as my template, I'm going to use processor add image. And as my output, it's going to be scheduled to post. Okay. And create rule. So now, when I drop something into folder 01, it goes out to mturk, gets written, the task is assigned, I review the result, and it gets dumped into this next folder. That, as soon as it goes into that folder, a processor task gets created and assigned, again, to me. This is not very helpful. And the template tells me to add an image, find an image, resize it, put it in S3, and insert it into the document. That's what it says to do. As soon as I select done on that, then it gets dumped into 03, where it's scheduled to post. So from a workflow perspective, it's straightforward. It's the tedious stuff underneath that in order to actually find the image, get the image hosted somewhere, and put it, that's where the challenge is. Okay. Now, the other way you could do it is you could have a person upload it to the media library and then take that, and that means that they're going to log into WordPress and upload it with media library and then stick it in there. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that's kind of messy. Or maybe they're going to put it in Dropbox and make it public or something, right? There's any number of ways you can do this, but you've got to figure out some place that you're going to put images. Do you have a breakdown? Okay. Simon Orr says, if I have 100 personas at some point, that gets bulky. Yes, long before 100, it'll get bulky. Plus, it definitely leads to mistakes. If I don't copy everything, if I get confused, don't actually blah, blah, blah. So perhaps using a similar idea as browsers that download the same file and adding one or two to the file name, perhaps append the date new. There must be a better way with the templates. There's a whole bunch of implications in your question there, Simon. You're not going to get to 100 templates. 100 personas. That number that you're authorized to, you're allowed to get to 100 personas. That number was intended to be a practical definition of infinity. Okay. At some point, there's a real agency version that has another level of hierarchy in this in order to manage large numbers of personas, and personas get renamed projects and a bunch of other changes. In terms of the way the templates are handled, yeah, that I'm sure is going to change too sometime this year. But that's the way it is for now. And in terms of copying personas, just bear in mind that you cannot copy a persona that has workflows defined. That too will change at some point, but sometime this year, in fact. But that's not the reality now. And so you can copy something that has an intact folder structure. You can do that, and you should even be able to copy feeds and venues. Maybe not venues, certainly feeds. But you can't copy kind of everything that's in a persona right now. And apologize, that's the way it is, but that's the state of the tool currently. Do we have anything new in Slack, Dan? And Jamie says she's got it. Good. Thanks, Jamie. Do you use Turkus to do full articles in addition to having them do abstracts? Simon, we are getting ready to. Okay, I'm getting ready to. Now, that's not going to be the easy button. Text broker will be the easy button for full-length content. Okay. My notion about how you do my notion about MTurk is you don't say, dear Turker, please write me a 500-word article, 500-word original article. That's not my notion about how you use MTurk to do full-length content. My notion is you divide the pieces up in chunks, and Phil's already got some pieces like that running where he asks people to say what are the 3 main points of the article, right? And that's the notion that that I have in mind as well. It's like, what are the 3 main points, and then ask somebody to write about each point, and then combine the thing together, right? That's going to get you faster work, and I think better quality work than to ask one Turker to write 500 words. It's a more complex workflow, of course, but I believe it's going to be more effective. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, Nolan asked, how much should it cost for a Turker to review another Turker's work? Like I said, I think 10 to 15 cents. 15, I think, is on the high side. Yes, add image and ResultFlow. Yes. Okay, good. Okay, I didn't cover the T2 workflow. Let me see. Wow. You know what? Oh gosh, let's see. All right, well, first let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week, and then maybe, I mean, it's just. I probably ought to do a separate event next week for about the T2 workflow. Actually, I can do both the T and T2 workflow if that's all I talked about. So why don't I plan on that? And we're going to throw in an additional event next week, and I'll get back to you about when that's going to be. I have to look at my own schedule and figure out what's possible. It might have to be next Friday. I'm not sure, but let's at least come back to. Back to live, and I'll let's see, stop presenting to everyone, and there we are. Okay, so next week is week 5. This is week 4, week 5. See how I did that? And week 5 is about content promotion, right? And so Dan, I think you're going to be leading at least half of that. Is that true or not?
Yeah, there's a few pieces of what I'd planned to do that depend on the script workflow and me actually understanding that in time to use it.
Yeah, so we can talk about that. And so the script workflow is in my development copy now. There is one thing that I want to add to it before I roll it out. And that I'm believing that may be done while we were doing this. I'm not sure. If it's not already done, it'll be done sometime in the next 18 hours or so. So I'm planning to actually throw that into the 403 release. I mean, it's like I said, it's in my dev copy. And I'm going to roll it to top of trunk for the early access program people, which includes staff. However, there's like I said, there's one thing I want to add to it, but we might as well roll it I might as well roll it this weekend in the dot update. So you'll have it, Dan, in some version. You'll have it tonight, and everyone will have it sometime over the weekend. And so the script workflow allows you to run templates on documents. At some point there'll be multiple kinds of templates, but right now FreeMarker, the same FreeMarker is the underlying language for the templates that you see in ResultFlow, and so you'll be able to use FreeMarker as essentially kind of a query language on HTML. So you can pull pieces out, and one of the standard use cases is to create simple tweets. And I know Nick has already been asking about that.
Yes, that's what Nick and I are planning to do with it right away.
Yeah. That was one of the standard things. So using a combination of the script workflow and the delay workflow, you can put together something that just like tweets indefinitely. So and so that's one of the things that we'll build out next week. And I don't know what else, Dan, that you had in mind, but I know that the script and delay were key to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that's news is I believe, please, Lord, that I have all of the I's and T's appropriately decorated in order to get Facebook to review our app. And so I'm hoping that that's out in a very small number of days. And so that's also on the horizon. Text broker is the next thing that is in work in development, in active development, and that should be done sometime during next week. And whether or not it's actually rolled out in time to everybody for, well, it should be for the hangout in week 6. Yes, I believe it should actually be rolled out. I mean, it'll certainly be tested in development and top of trunk copy for early access people, but it won't, may or may not actually be in your copy when you see it live on the hangout in week 6. But if it's not there, then it'll be the weekend immediately following that is when I would roll it out. And text broker is, like I said, the easy button for doing long form content. And that will be, we'll nominate that the 4.1 release, and there may be some other little things in there as well, some bug fixes and some stuff like that. So that's kind of the near-term roadmap. Okay, we have script workflow and text broker are the things that are in work right now. Okay, and I will get back to everybody. I'll mail the entire list, and I'll make sure I'll post it in Slack as well. I probably really need to do one standalone event that's just about the T2 and T workflows, because it's clear to me that there are so many other questions, and there are enough people who are, plowing through the TW workflow. At this rate, I'm never going to get to do it. We'll just do an event only about those 2 things. So I'll do that sometime next week as well. Okay. Good. All right. And I didn't actually get all the way through support. Oh, crap. Okay. All right. I will reply to those individually because we've already been at this 2 hours. So I'll reply to all the support cases this afternoon. And if there's anything that requires a, kind of a video description, then I'll just record that in the privacy of my own office and post that for everybody in Slack. Okay. If it needs a screen capture video, that's what I'll do. Okay. Good. Dan, is there anything else before we wrap up? We've been at this a couple hours.
I got to go turn into a pumpkin or something.
Yeah, me too. Some sort of squash. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Well, thanks everybody. And like I said, mail support, catch us in Slack. Those are kind of your best bets. And whatever question you have, reach out and let us get that answered for you. All right. And we'll see you next week when we talk about promoting content. Take care, everyone. Let's see.